Good evening, everyone. We want to get started in our candidate forum tonight. My name is Tremaine Johnson, and I want to welcome all of you here at this wonderful space called the Zion Baptist Church, Newport News, Virginia. Thank you all for being here tonight. We're grateful to partner with all of our partners tonight, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority, also the NAACP, even the Coalition of Concerned Clergy want to partner together to have this opportunity to hear from those who will represent us. So tonight, I pray that you're ready and that we're ready to receive and hear. Got your notepads out. You are welcome to our restrooms, anything we have, everything but the kitchen. That's closed tonight. But believe me, come back another night, you'll have spiritual food and physical food. Thank you for coming, and I believe that ends my welcome, and we'll have who's next on the program. I think Ms. Brooks. Let's give her a hand as she comes.
Thank you so much, Pastor Tremaine, for that wonderful welcome. So, as he said, my name is Jennifer Burgess Brooks, and I am the president of the Newport News NAACP. And so I just bring you greetings from Newport News NAACP. It's so good to see all of you here on this evening. So I just wanted to share just a little bit. The reason why we do this is because we want you to be informed on tonight. And so part of the NAACP's job is to make sure that the community is informed. And so we want you tonight to hear from your candidates, the people that are running in your area, in your district. We want you to hear from them. And so also we will be giving you the opportunity, a little short. That's better. We will be giving you the opportunity tonight to ask questions. So we have given you a index card and also a pen. Ms. Terry Branch is walking around with a basket. So if you do have some questions, please raise your hand and she will put it in the basket for you. And throughout this session, we'll make sure that your question get answered. So thank you so much. We welcome you, and we're so excited about our partners, the AKA, VA Block, and Coalition of Clergymen. So thank you so much and enjoy. Next, we're going to have our Pledge of Allegiance. So if you all would stand, and Janiyah Telford, if you would come up, our student from Crittenden in the 6th grade, if y'all would give her a hand. She's going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And next, we will have the introduction of the moderator by Ms. Karen, I don't have my glasses on, Bazemore Person. Ms. Karen, please come forward. Give her a hand, y'all.
Good evening. It's been a long day. So I'm here to introduce our moderator, Ms. Brittany McGraw. She is an award-winning former journalist, a dynamic leader, and community collaborator with more than 20 years of experience in the communications industry. Her passion for creating engaging content and exploring innovative ways to better connect with audiences across multiple platforms took her to newsrooms in North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Southwest Virginia. She relocated to Newport News from Roanoke, Virginia last year, and Brittany, a native of Charlotte, North Carolina, is here with us. She earned her Bachelor's of Art in Journalism and Mass Communications, as well as a second Bachelor's of Art in Romance Languages from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Brittany is also a proud member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Lambda Omega chapter here in Newport News. Please join me in welcoming our esteemed moderator, Brittany McGraw, to the stage. We are excited to have her guide today's forum discussion and ensure a meaningful and engaging experience for everyone in attendance. Ms. McGraw.
Good evening. I know it's been a long day, but I feel like we can bring a little more energy. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's Newport News Candidate Forum. It is important as we head to the polls that we are informed about the candidates and the issues that are on the ballot. Tonight's forum will give you an opportunity to hear from the candidates vying for your vote for the Newport News School Board, as well as Newport News City Council. Now, I want to share a quick overview of how the evening will work. We will hear from our school board candidates during the first hour, and then after a brief intermission, we'll hear from our city council candidates. Each forum will start with the candidates having 30 seconds to introduce themselves, followed by questions that address issues and topics that matter to you. For those questions, each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond. We have a timekeeper who will indicate when you have 30 seconds remaining in your designated time. As we end the forum, you'll have 1 minute for a closing statement if time permits. We also will allow time for rebuttals if a candidate's name is invoked in an answer. All right, are we ready to go? All right. Well, let's begin with our 30-second introductions with Christopher Worthington.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dr. Christopher Avery Worthington. I have a PhD in education. I'm running for the school board here in the Central District of Newport News. I have a PhD in education with a specialization in post-secondary and adult education, 3 master's degrees, 2 bachelor degrees, and an associate's degree. I've been working in education for almost 20 years now, as well as criminal justice. I hope to have your support, and I look forward to you learning more about me. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is William Beverly. You can call me Coach Beverly. I am the father of 3 boys. I have 3 grandsons. I'm also the owner of Coach Beverly's Driving School. I'm a graduate of Virginia Union University, 1992, a graduate of Tennessee State University, and I hold an endorsement from Old Dominion University. I also am endorsed by the Newport News Democratic Party, as well as the Newport News Teachers Association. Lastly, I've been a principal, assistant principal, guidance counselor, head coach, and I would love to have your vote. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Rashina Harris, and I'm running for school board in the North District of Newport News. I am an executive director for a therapeutic foster care agency. I have a master's degree in education with a focus on policy and administration. I am a current substitute with the Newport News Public Schools. I'm a mom. I have 2 children that attend Newport News Public Schools, one at Woodside and one at Ella Fitzgerald. I'm an executive administrator for Tri-City Hurricanes. I'm a qualified mental health professional that works with children with mental health concerns and intellectual developmental disabilities. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Amon. I currently serve as one of the Central District members of the Newport News School Board, so I'm running for re-election. I am an estate planning attorney in Newport News. More importantly, I am a mom of 2 boys. I'm also a Newport News graduate. I attended Dunbar Irwin before it became Achievable Dream. That will date me a little bit. And graduated from Ferguson High School, also Newport News Public Schools mom. And I look forward to the opportunity to continue serving the citizens, students, and families of Newport News. Thank you.
My name is John Bloom. I ran for state delegate as a Republican, and now I'm a recovering Republican. And I was up until last Friday, I was a long-term substitute teacher for Passage Middle School. I found out one student that was in the class stabbed a teacher with a pencil. None of us were ever informed about that. Right now, they removed me as a math teacher, and the child that stabbed the teacher is in the classroom with the other students, and I've been going door to door to tell the parents, be careful.
Good evening to everyone. My name is Maritza Alger, and I am running for Newport News School Board, South District. The reason I'm running is because I have been always passionate about education, schools, and community. I feel that we have room in terms of growth, and given the knowledge and the background that I have in education, I feel that I have a lot to contribute and to learn also and to give. Thank you.
And thank you to each of our candidates for sharing a little about themselves and their motivation for wanting to be on school board. We'll hop right into our questions. Our first question of the evening: what are your top 3 issues should you be elected or re-elected to the school board, and how will you address those issues? We'll start with Mrs. Amon.
Thank you. The top 3 issues I would like to work on in my second term are, first of all, continuing to focus on the safety and security of our schools and students and teachers. We've made a good amount of progress, instituted a number of measures and changes, but I think we can continue to review and make sure our procedures and our policies are good. We're up to date with the latest measures, that we continue to have a high bar for that. And while we are doing that, I would like to focus on continuing to improve our schools, our accreditation. I'd like to see all schools accredited without conditions. We've made significant progress. We've made a number of changes, including changes to our literacy curriculum to bring it up to what Commonwealth of Virginia now wants, more based on the science of reading. I'm very encouraged about the changes that our new administration has made, the new curricula they've brought on board. So I really do expect to see continued progress and think that's very achievable. And then third, I would like to continue exploring ways that we can bring more practical trades education opportunities to our students, partnering with area businesses, making sure that students that want to be college bound can be, those that want to go into the trades or careers have as many opportunities as possible. Thank you.
All right, Mrs. Harris.
Good evening again. I would say my first concern would be safety. Really the safety and wellness for both administrators and teachers and students alike. And I would like to approach that through community engagement and incorporating programming that will encompass both community, nonprofits, grassroots organizations, along with the educational system. My second would likely to be fully accreditation for Newport News Public School Division. And lastly, it would be mental health and wellness, because I feel like that's an area of expertise for me, and not just for students, but also for teachers and the families that are involved. Thank you.
Next, Mr. Bloom.
The most important thing right now is safety in the schools. As I mentioned earlier, I had a student that stabbed a teacher. She spent three months in 5th grade. She was moved up to 6th grade. None of the teachers were ever told. Supposedly, neither was Chris Smith, the Passage Middle School principal, and therefore the teachers were not informed. I found out about this in a parents-teachers conference. We placed the school superintendent placed our students at risk as well as our teachers at risk. First order of business, get rid of the school superintendent and everybody that didn't tell the parents that they had a child that stabbed a teacher in the class, in the classroom in 5th grade. Second, we need to focus on educating our children. Suspending is not an effective way of doing that. We have the technology. We need to Zoom or live stream all of our classes. And the third thing is they say classroom management. Teachers should not be doing classroom management. And classroom management means putting someone on suspension. I think you can do better if we follow the model the Juvenile Detention Center does. They have a security guard in there. The most well-behaved classes I've ever had were in there. We need to hire more security guards, put them in a class so the teachers can teach.
And for those in our audience who are just joining our forum, a reminder of the question: what are your top 3 issues should you be elected or re-elected to the school board, and how will you address those issues? Coach Beverly.
Good evening once again. So first of all, I would like to just say I'm still a practitioner of schools. I'm semi-retired. Currently, I work in Hampton City Schools as an administrator on call. So I go into schools that have, administrators that are on maternity leave, or if they've hurt or something like that. I'll go in and I'll work with the administration until that administrator returns. So I actually do this currently. So one of the things, and the 3 things that I would like to address immediately are safety, student improvement, student achievement, and teacher and staff compensation. So I'll start with safety. First of all, I would love to see all of the school board members as well as the administrators attend at least one in-service with the Department of Justice so that they can stay in tune with the best practices that are going on throughout the country. All right, so we're not so reactionary when things are happening. I would also like to see those folks come back and report to the community and let them know what's going on out in the other areas. Once again, so we don't have to always respond. We can get ahead of some of these things. Secondly, I would like to have us start to embed the community agencies that we have available to us in the schools. Some of the therapeutic treatment agencies that are already available, they're working with the students. Why not have them work with us in the schools? When I was a principal at Lindsay Middle School, we had those things. We had up to, at one point, 8 counselors. We had a memorandum of understanding, so we knew how people were going to move in the building. That's a cost-effective way of making sure that we have what we need in the schools. In regards to student improvement, I would love to have wall-to-wall academies. So each high school have 4 academies in the school. That will bring our achievement up. We need to make sure that we have 100% accreditation without conditions. Right now in Hampton, we have that. Lastly, I would like to make sure that we have teachers, at least one teacher appointed to the school board by their peers. Too long, teachers have been left out of the conversation, so I would love to have a teacher appointed to the school board. Thank you.
Mrs. Alger.
Although safety is critical and important, and it's something that we're currently working on, I also feel that we have 40% of our students that are needing help with literacy. And literacy to me is a priority because to me it has economic ties. If children can read by 3rd grade, if we can get them to the point where they are graduating and we get them ready for the workforce, we are making our community safer. And to me, that's important. The other thing, too, is modernizing our schools. I think it's really important that we get up to date. Our schools are, on the average, over 50 years old. It's important that we show value, respect, and interest by modernizing our schools for 21st century. We are, right now, preparing our kids or the next generation. And we still have yesterday's schools are still existing today. But I feel like we can do so much better. Expanding our pre-K program. Right now, we currently serve our 4-year-olds, and I'd like to see us expand to the 3-year-olds so we can help our families, number one, educate our students as early as they can get to us. And that, too, can help that whole track in terms of, or the whole pipeline in terms of educating our students and having them ready to read by 3rd grade. Thank you.
And Dr. Worthington.
My My three platforms are collective bargaining, safer schools, and mental health awareness. My collective bargaining, currently educators and support staff are paid once a month in Newport News public schools. That is very tough for even the best budgeter to even try to budget on. And so we're concerned with literacy, but if we can't even retain the current educators that we have, that is problematic. We don't have anybody to teach. Safer schools. Safer schools not only, in my opinion, include the schools, but it also includes the bus stops. When the students leave home and the parents are at work, who needs to be responsible for them? Somebody needs to make sure that the bus stops are safe. Neighborhoods should be treated the same. Neighborhoods should not be distinguished because of the income or what the parents do. All students deserve to be safe and educated. Mental health awareness. Working in a school day is 7.25 hours. Teachers and support staff, they're not paid enough, first of all. And then when you turn that 7.25 hours into 16 hours, it takes its toll. And then you have educators that have to, and support staff, that have to go to a second, sometimes even a third job. They are struggling mentally, not to mention our students are struggling mentally. Some of them come from broken homes, may have issues, and this has nothing to do with income necessarily, but we need to take a focus and take care of not only our educators and our support staff, because if we don't take care of them, how can we expect them to take care of our students?
Thank you. We know that school districts across the Commonwealth are struggling with being able to retain teachers and staff. So starting with Mr. Bloom, what are your plans to help retain our current teachers and attract new teachers and school personnel to our school system?
First, I'd like to tell you that when I was just a regular substitute teacher, I had someone handing out flyers for organizing a union within the school system for the teachers. I said, if the school board would do their job and protect the teachers, we need to have a balance between protecting the teachers, protecting the students. Sorry, but parents go last because the taxpayers have to pay for that for that shooting of the female teacher. The entire taxpayers had to pay for that because educators made bad decisions, just like the educators made bad decisions in regard to this child that stabbed the teacher and retaining her in a classroom that places the teachers and the students at risk. I wrote a letter to the school board. I sent it to Ms. Amon and told her to send it to everybody else. And it's in the back there if anybody wants to read it. It tells you what they're doing and how we need to fix it. We need to make it safer in the classroom. Security guards in the classroom when you have classes that are very disruptive. And it worked in a juvenile detention center, and Enterprise is also a good fix too. It's another option. We have to make it safe for teachers and faculty. We got to stop putting students that stab a teacher with a pencil in class, because in my desk I have scissors, and I wouldn't have thought of a problem giving a scissor to a 6-year-old, which would have been a weapon in this child's hands.
So we do want to offer candidates opportunities for rebuttal if their name is invoked during a candidate's response. So we do want to give Ms. Amon 30 seconds if she would like.
I'll just briefly say, yes, he did and asked me to forward it to the school board members. So I have brought it to the attention of our board chair, and we'll be forwarding it on. So thank you.
All right, to Dr. Worthington, what are your plans to help retain our current teachers and attract new teachers and school personnel to our school system?
Well, first of all, I would move forward with collective bargaining. Collective bargaining will give teachers and educators support staff an opportunity to have better work conditions, safer schools, safer environments, better wages. Right now, employees, Newport News Public Schools employees are paid once a month. That is horrible. they're already underpaid, but then you turn around and compound it with paying them once a month and then expect them to be able to teach and educate our students for 7 hours, and sometimes they have to do their career coaches and support staff, and it's just doing a lot of things after school. If we want to attract more teachers, we need to pay them better. But that once a month is ridiculous. We can't expect them to be able to want to come to work for Newport News Public Schools when we are, first of all, underpaying them, and then turn around paying them once a month. That in and of itself is problematic. If we want safer schools, mental health awareness, we need to take care of the people that are actually performing the job. Right now, they're not taken care of. As a current educator, I know for a fact that teachers are underpaid. I have been working with Newport News Public Schools for 3 years, as well as Hampton City Schools, and what we're paid is ridiculous. We can't make ends meet, let alone be successful or want to come and work for Newport News Public Schools if we don't pay them.
Mrs. Alger.
One of the things that I feel strongly about is in seeing this whole, the way we look at education and the way we look at our teachers. We have to put our teachers, our educators first. One of the things that I am committed to is making sure that we are building leadership. So if we have strong leadership, we will have stronger teachers and stronger students. And to me, if you help the adults will then surround the kids with the very best. So providing the resources for our teachers, higher wages, I believe, and it's not just teachers, it's just staff altogether, because we've got bus drivers, we've got custodians, we've got all sorts of people that are making sure that, the schools are running and running strong. And also making sure that we're connecting in the community with the universities. It's important that the universities and communities are supporting us in terms of making sure teachers are prepared and they're coming in prepared, because people do not just want someone who's, it's good that we have folks that are coming on board to support us that are not certified yet. But at the end, the goal is to get folks certified so our students will continue to grow. And the other thing that I feel that's really important is, sometimes I think that teachers don't necessarily suffer from burnout as it is feeling demoralized. We have to show respect and value. And I'm hoping that I can lead by example. I go around and I constantly tell folks, I thank you for what you do, making sure that we appreciate those who are educating our children in our community. Thank you.
Mrs. Amen, what are your plans to help retain our current teachers and attract new teachers?
Thank you. A lot of what's been said is very valuable, I think. Certainly strong compensation, and I have shared this before. Last, I was able to look at our data. Typically, teacher salaries, they'll be broken up by years of experience, bachelor's, master's, oftentimes in just sort of 14 categories, starting from 0 years experience up to retirement. And looking at the Hampton Roads area, we are either number 1 or number 2 in 12 of the 14 categories, and when we're 2, we're second only to Chesapeake. So oftentimes you won't necessarily have people wanting to drive across that far. We do maintain strong compensation. We have met the raises, and then some when they have come down from Richmond. And certainly we want to maintain strong compensation. But I think what is also important is to continue to support, and even more so, our current teachers, be it with, when we have curricula changes, that's that's a big, heavy lift. So to the extent our administration can, to make their job teaching the students as easy as possible when there are issues, being responsive. I do think leadership is a critical component. If you have good, strong, positive building leadership in your school building, that's going to foster a positive culture and encourage teachers and staff to stay, and also supporting them when they have challenges in the classroom. I think we can also be as welcoming as possible to those that might want to volunteer in the schools to give additional supports as well. So those are some of the things that I would look to continue doing.
Mrs. Harris.
Yes, a lot of what was already said, I definitely agree with. Collective bargaining and strong compensation. Being an executive director, I work pretty often with budgets. And one of the things I've been thinking about that I think would help were our retention bonuses. When we experienced the Great Resignation, that was one of the things that we implemented that allowed people to really be recognized. We're glad you stayed through the difficult times type of culture, and then increased compensation over time. Anyone who's worked with budgets knows that you can't just give a 3%, it would be nice, but you can't just give a 3% raise. It's something that has to happen over time. And so I think that needs to be looked at too. The pay schedule is something I heard a great deal while on the campaign trail. A lot of educators spoke about changing that pay schedule. That is also something that I think we need to deep dive into, because I know there is some work behind that is also something that can't just happen. We've got to look at the different pay companies that we're working with, how much money up front that will entail in order to make the pay schedule twice a month as opposed to once a month, because all of that has a cost behind it. I also, too, think that training and development of staff is going to be essential. Making sure that we're pouring into our leadership and even our entry-level folks, making sure they're getting something out of the deal. Everyone wants something out of the deal. 40 hours is a lot of time, sometimes 40+ hours to dedicate to a place or a thing or an industry. If you're pouring back into me through trainings and conferences and things along those lines, I think it makes it worthwhile.
And Mr. Beverly.
Yes, ma'am. I've had the good fortune to work in several different school systems, not only here but in other states. And so with that fortune, I've been able to see business being done in different manners. I think there needs to be a paradigm shift in how we do business in Newport News Public Schools. And that would start with what I alluded to earlier by appointing. So think about what I'm telling you all. Appointing a teacher by their peers to the school board. Currently, you have a student that's appointed. Student gets to sit there with the school board, helps make decisions. We need a teacher that is appointed by the school board. So when they're in the work sessions, when they're making these decisions about teachers, there's a teacher there to give them some guidance, to tell them day to day what's going on in real time in those buildings. Currently, we do not have that. Once again, when I talk about a paradigm shift, we have to think about things that haven't been done and look at them, do our research, and go forward with some of these things. I think once you put a teacher onto the school board, they will help you understand the importance of what it is that they do. They will help you understand the day-to-day challenges. They will also help you understand the things that Dr. Worthington was talking about their everyday lives, so you have a better appreciation. So once again, I think that's very important. I think we need to really take a strong look at that. That's not something that's difficult to do. It's just a decision that needs to be made by the school board. I think the city council would be on board for that, and I think that will get us going in the right direction. That will help teachers stay because they will feel that they have a part in what's going on. They will feel that they have a representative that's actually hearing their voice on the school board. So that will reduce your retention rate because now I have someone there that's representing me. So that's the major thing that I would like to see done. And that will help with the collective bargaining as well. Thank you.
Remember, tonight is an opportunity for you to have your voices heard as well. So if you have questions for the candidates, we are accepting questions from the audience to ask our candidates. We have a volunteer in the audience, if she will raise her hand, who is collecting questions from the audience. So If you have questions that you would like shared with them, please submit them in the basket. To our next question, how would you invest federal and state dollars related to ongoing pandemic-related learning loss and lower literacy rates? We'll start with Mrs. Harris.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Absolutely. How would you invest federal and state dollars related to ongoing pandemic-related learning loss and lower literacy rates?
I think I would start somewhere along the lines with more therapeutic clinical support in the schools. If we can have more counselors, more licensed individuals to work with the impact of the real trauma that I think some of our students and even teachers experienced through the pandemic. I believe that we have to do this in a way that is collaborative with not just our clinical piece, but also in generating and providing some support around our community organizations and our nonprofits to allow them to come in and provide some support also. I think because we're dealing with a national pandemic that impacted and kind of turned our world upside down, what we need to do is really dialogue about what the issues are and how people and how communities and how families have been changed because of the pandemic, and really see where the support lies. That may look different in different family dynamics and in different school settings and in different environments, but I believe I would start there.
Mrs. Alger.
As far as funding, based on what I have seen, we just don't simply have enough. And one of the things that I would invest in right away is interventionists, making sure that schools have people that can target students that have great needs in terms of literacy. Because I believe that we can catch students up over time. I've seen it, I've done it, and I believe in it. And all it takes is getting the right people in the right places and working with the students from the minute they start, and we see them dip behind and keep working with them. And I always tell the parents, it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to happen across a couple of years, but it will happen. And that's the thing. If we can invest in people and give them the right resources, we can certainly catch up students. The problem we have right now is we don't have enough to create that whole effect that we need across the board. Thank you.
Mrs. Worthington, how would you invest federal and state dollars related to ongoing pandemic-related learning loss and lower literacy rates?
Well, going back to my original statement was, first of all, I would increase the teachers' compensation. Because again, and you can't attract qualified educators if they're not being paid. We want our children to learn to read better, but we need to pay the people that actually going to teach them. Number two, what I would also do is I would not expect overnight, expect quick results. It's a gradual process. It's going to take time to get caught up. However, we need to utilize our community resources, the resources that we have. Instead of investing into new curriculums, why not create more partnerships with the community and let them assist us? Because again, the businesses in the community are the ones that are going to be employing our children when they get older. They're the ones with the needs that our students are facing. But more importantly, going back to my original statement, we need to increase the compensation for educators and change the pay schedule, because no one is going to want to come and educate a child if they got to struggle to make ends meet themselves. No one wants to take on a job of educating somebody if they have to work 2 and 3 jobs and just to make ends meet. If you want to see progress in our students, then we need to invest in our educators as well as support system. Yes, we need to make structural improvements. However, it still lies with the educators where we need to create an attractive package for them.
Mr. Bloom.
That is a hard question for someone who believes in the Constitution and believes that the money should stay here. The Department of Education in the United States does not educate a single child. That money should stay here, stay local, and be used locally. If you want to attract you want to attract teachers or faculty to come here, you got to treat them better than I've been treated in the as a teacher. And Mr. Beverly, I resigned as a substitute teacher. Would I be considered in that your plan about appointing a teacher? Because I have different visions, I have different ideas. I'm an engineer by degree, a nuclear engineer by degree, and administrators are the biggest problem in school. They go against teachers. They protect the rights of the parents at the expense of the teachers. And then there are teachers out there that are willing to take a pay cut than going here. As someone mentioned to me that's a member of faculty, they have hazardous duty pay in Newport News City, and they still can't attract teachers, yet we have the highest payroll salary of any teachers in here. They'd rather be safe than sorry.
So, Mr. Beverly, Mr. Bloom did invoke your name during his response, so we'd like to give you 30 seconds to respond.
So, yes, Mr. Bloom, what would happen in the plan that I have, the teacher will be appointed by her peers or his peers. So we would look for the teacher to be appointed by their peers. They would not be elected. So that once again, that would help with your attrition of teachers. That would allow the teachers to get together and decide who they would like to speak for them on the school board. So if you became a certified teacher, then you could possibly be appointed to the school board.
And you can remain standing because we will come to you next with how would you invest federal and state dollars related to ongoing pandemic-related learning loss and lower literacy rates?
So thank you. It's a very great question. As I alluded to earlier, there needs to be a paradigm shift. There needs to be a different way of thinking about how we do school business. So one of the first things I would do is make sure that we reinvest in our literacy program for our younger students. Currently, or last year, Newport News actually used Hampton's literacy program for the lower grades. And I think they're using another one out of Florida. So I'm not sure how they're going about doing their research and locating these programs, but I think we need to go back, have a plan together, and make sure that we invest in our literacy program. A lot of our students became disengaged during the pandemic. So one of the things that I saw firsthand and I was a part of in Hampton City Schools as the principal of Phoebus High School was I saw us bring wall-to-wall academies. So what that looks like is every high school have at least 4 academies embedded in the school. Those kids run to school. We had 100% accreditation without conditions. The last 4 years, Hampton City Schools has been accredited, 100%. I won't go into what the statistics are in Newport News, but I can tell you it's not 100%. All right, one of the reasons why that's happening is because the academies are bringing the kids to school. They feel like they're leaving with something, and they're gaining some experience, right on the job experience. Ford Next Generation was part of the company that came in and helped usher us, helped sponsor us, along with Huntington and Ingalls and other businesses in the area. They invested in us because they knew right away they would have a payout on their results. So what that looks like at Bethel High School, transportation and logistics, health and sciences, arts and media, and the last one escapes me right now. But each student belongs to one of those academies. So if you tap them on their shoulders, just like if they were in college, they will be able to tell you what it is that they're majoring in and what they're pursuing. So that's how I would invest the money. Thank you. Paradigm shift.
And Mrs. Amen, how would you invest federal and state dollars related to ongoing pandemic-related learning loss and lower literacy rates?
Ongoing learning loss and literacy rates, I think I would, as some of what has been said, I would probably focus most heavily on literacy, because if you can read, you can learn anything. Because you can read and teach yourself and read the textbooks and understand the notes that your teachers are giving you. I am very encouraged by our new curricula. For those that may not know, prior to this, some board members and I had identified some concerns with our literacy curriculum, had started digging, and when our new superintendent came on board, they dug further and identified some non-alignment, and Virginia was also rolling out a new, I would dare say, old approach, in that those of us that went through school years ago probably remember a more heavy focus on phonics. Pendulum shifted or swung a bit more to word identification and whole language, and this is more kind of coming back to the how people learn to read, the science of reading. If you learn some foundations, then as your level of reading or literacy needs to increase, you can break down new words, and it's a stronger literacy. So I'm very encouraged by that. I would use the funds to do our best to roll that out as quickly as possible, with as less stress as possible on our teachers and staff, be it resources or examples, getting things uploaded. But also, some students don't learn to read as quickly. I was a pretty quick reader, learning to read. My boys, not so much. So invest in individuals and people for identifying those with reading challenges and intervention and reading specialists. That's where I think we can really harness the students that are having trouble and those that are currently reading and bring them all to new levels.
Thank you to everyone in our audience who has submitted questions. We want to make sure to get to as many of those as we can in the remaining time that we have for our forum. So we're going to begin with a question about how often our school board members either are in the schools or plan to be in the schools, and what that perspective is about being able to see firsthand what's happening in our schools. So a submitted question from our audience, and we will start with Mrs. Worthington. Do you believe visiting schools is important as a school board member? For our incumbents, how often do you visit? And for our aspiring candidates, how often do you plan to visit?
Well, I am a current educator, and I was currently working in Hampton City Schools, starting this school year. However, I have been found out today that I'll be returning back to Newport News Schools. Prior to this school year, I actually worked with university instructors, and I worked in the Newport News School District. I believe I have established connections with educators and support staff. I have been endorsed by the Newport News Educators Association, and I'm a member of the Virginia Educators Association, and more importantly, I found out yesterday that I was awarded the Moms Demand Action Gun Sense Candidate Distinction. I believe it is very important that we visit the schools, because number one, they need to know that the school board is there. The only way that you can know what is going on is you have to be there. I have firsthand knowledge as a classroom educator, fourth grade educator. Last year I was at Hines Middle School, prior to that BC Charles, and so I think it is very important to visit the schools on a regular basis, at least monthly. And when I say visit the schools, I'm not talking about just the same school or the schools just in Central District, because all schools in Newport News matter, not just the ones in Central District. I think it is very important that I have established connections with the educators. They are the ones that encouraged me to start my campaign to run for the Central District School Board. And so it's very important to nurture those relationships that I have established, and I will continue to nurture those relationships that I have established with the educators. Not to mention, I have 20 years of experience in education, so I'm not a newcomer to this. Thank you.
Mr. Beverly, what is your perspective on how often school board members, if they should have a presence in the schools, and if so, how often, and what would your plan be?
Yes, ma'am. I think that's a very good question as well. Once again, I've had the opportunity and the fortune to work in several school districts as an administrator as well as a principal. One of the school districts that I worked in was a rural school district not far from here. I'll tell you where it was, Middlesex County. Small county. The school board members visited our school probably once or twice a week. We were undergoing a capital improvement, a $15 million expansion on our building. They had a direct investment in what was going on, so they were there pretty much every day. Change orders were happening. I was actually sworn in to do change orders up there, so when those things was happening, they were coming up there on a daily basis. At that point, when I was assistant principal, I thought they were there too much. I felt like sometimes we couldn't operate, felt like sometimes that we really could not do what we needed to do, and it wasn't advantageous for them to be there as much. I've been in some other school districts where there was no presence. I think there needs to be a happy medium. If I'm selected as a school board member, I would expect myself to be in at least 3 to 4 schools a week. And some will be announced, some will be unannounced. It wouldn't be a I got you type thing, because we don't operate like that. It's what do you need? How can I help you? What's going to help the schools be better? And that would be the motive of operation, and that's how we'll go about doing business. So having been a principal, working in the schools, in and out of the schools, I know what it looks like. I know what it feels like to have people, for lack of vernacular, hovering over you. I also know what it feels like not to have the support that you need. So I think it's a happy medium. If I'm selected, like I said, I would be there in each school 3 to 5 times a week, and it's a lot of schools to get to. So I would want them to see me as someone that can help. When I leave there, if they say, hey, this is what we need, I'm on it, because I know what it is to be a principal and not be supported.
Mrs. Amen, do you believe visiting schools is important as a school board member? And if so, what's your plan for visiting Newport News schools?
I do agree it is important for school board members to visit schools. I also agree that there's a happy medium, because sometimes if we're in the middle of testing, it can be more disruptive than helpful. So, there are seasons, start of the school year, you'll see me or a number of us at a lot of the schools as we're kicking off the school year. But then also throughout, I think it's also important to visit North, Central, and South schools. We have magnet programs. We have students going all over the city. So it's wonderful to be able to visit schools in different parts of the city, middle, high, elementary. Also believe it's important to work with the school administration and the administration. Some school principals are very comfortable with a phone call and, hey, I'd like to swing by. Others are more comfortable running it up the ladder to the administration, and that's okay. I want to do my best to respect that. So I would say it's kind of seasonal, budget season. We may not be in as much as start of the year, start of a semester, or say, heavy testing time, we might not be in as much. But it is certainly something that I try to coordinate with the principals and or the administration. And I also do try when I visit to do, if I can, if there is another administrator or someone visiting, partner with them, so it's sort of one disruption instead of multiple disruptions in different days and times. So it's important, and we want to balance.
Mrs. Harris, your perspective on school board members having a presence in schools and what you feel is a good cadence for that.
Absolutely. I think it's important for there to be visibility. For someone like myself who has a kind of a natural presence in the schools as a substitute, I kind of work across the division. But I look at someone like the incumbent for the North District seat, Marvin Harris, who's endorsed me 100%. I look at someone like him who we've done several community programs with. So it's nothing to see him, not to see him like at a sporting event or at Todd Stadium, or I ran into school board member Maritza at the Magnet program and specialty programs night just the other day. We also saw each other at Todd Stadium. I mean, we come across each other, we have conversations. I see principals, assistant principals, administrators, other colleagues, other substitutes, when we talk all the time about the culture and the environment of the schools and how kids are doing and how parents are doing. So I think there should be some authenticity to those engagements, but I also believe there should be someone going to the building. We should be going into the buildings to see how the day-to-day and the administrative piece works and the interworkings of what the building looks like and the infrastructure as well. But I think some of that stuff kind of happens naturally too if you're plugged into the community.
Mrs. Alger, your perspective.
Today I visited 4 schools. And the reason I visit schools is because, number one, we have to show support. We got to show support to the administrators, to the classroom teachers. I saw a teacher who was planning on her own. I walked into the classroom. I said to her, "How are you doing?" I introduced myself. "How's your year been?" And she shared with me that so far things are going well, and I thanked her. Thank you so much for what you do each day. And the reason I do that, along with my colleague Terry Best and I were out there today, and I also keep a chart, so I know what needs we may have that I need to, connect to or circle back as far as the superintendent, because I think it's a good way of giving feedback in terms of things that we are seeing. When I was a school principal, I'll be honest with you, I was a principal for 15 years. I think I got 2 visits the entire time. Sometimes people feel that it's a threat, but it's not a threat to have members of school board to come and visit schools. In fact, if anything, it just shows that you care. Thank you.
And Mr. Bloom, your perspective on being in the schools as a school board member.
It's essential, so you get a rapport with the teachers and even some of the students. In my class, we had this bar for a lockdown drill that was supposed to hold the door open. And you need to have meetings with the teachers as well as the students, because the student goes and says, "Hey, you got this window right over there. Break the window, reach in and open the door." And it's like, yeah, we need to try to address issues that the students come up with, because just because they're 8th graders, 6th graders, or 7th graders doesn't mean they can't contribute. And I'm a nuclear engineer, and I can teach 6th, 7th, and 8th grade math without a certification. And we need to allow that so that we can get volunteers. I went door to door and I said, just because I'm no longer the math lab teacher, if your child needs help in math, here's my number. Call me up and I'll Zoom a meeting. I use freeconferencecall.com for my meetings, and I can teach. Let the teachers teach. Let security take care of classroom management and make it safer within the classroom, and you'll get more teachers coming to Newport News. Right now, they'd rather take a pay cut than take the combat pay to go and teach it in our classrooms.
We have time for one more question before we will get to our closing statements. Our final question of the night: how would you help work to address the disparities in discipline of students of color and students with disabilities in our schools? Mr. Beverly, we will start with you.
Well, first of all, I think you have to look at your data. You have to look at the data and follow the data. I think you have to make sure that you put the funding into all of the schools, the resources that we have in Newport News, and make sure that everyone is getting the equal funding in their buildings. Most importantly, you have to involve the parents. You have to make sure that your parents stay involved with what's going on at the IEP meetings or any of those type of meetings that are going on. If a parent can't be there, we have technology now. We need to make sure that they're on a Zoom call. If they're not on a Zoom, we need to make sure that we have someone there advocating for their parent. I think that we need to make sure that any disparities, especially when it comes to color as well as race and ethnic, those things, we have no time for that at this point. We need to make sure that all of our kids are treated fairly and have the same opportunities. So I think that's very important that we use whatever resources we have to make sure that this takes place. As a principal, I worked as a LEA, so a lot of the meetings I either sat in or as an assistant principal, I sat in to make sure that the school was represented. But I also dealt with a lot of the advocates that were sent down from the State Department to advocate for kids. I think it's important that they're not seen as an enemy. When those people come in to help the families and make sure that they're getting the resources, I think we have to be transparent, and we have to make sure that we look at each kid like if it was our own child. Working as a guidance counselor, and I've been a guidance counselor as well, you have to make sure that you have a heart to work in this industry. It's not for everybody. Being a principal is not for everybody. And definitely being on the school board is not for everybody. It's not a popularity contest. We need to make sure, especially in Newport News, with some of the things that we have going on, I don't think this is time to be completely honest with you, for us to have a lot of on-the-job training. We need to make sure we put someone in there that can get right to work and be an advocate for the families and the students.
Mrs. Alger, how would you help work to address the disparities in discipline of students of color and students with disabilities in our schools?
Absolutely. I feel that it's important, number one, whenever there's a discipline issue, that it is fairly investigated. Making sure that you talk to whoever's involved in the situation involving and making sure that we provide support in terms of wraparound services. And those services are there to help our students, for example, that may need a little bit more coaching in terms of a particular behavior that needs to improve. And also to look, and I agree, we need to look at data. One department that I know that constantly looks at all divisions across the Office is Civil Rights. They are constantly looking to see that we are doing the right things by our students, because we have to make sure that our students, not only that they have the opportunities, but they have the outcomes and the fairness. And to me, that's something that I'm all about. Make sure our kids are treated fairly. And if they're treated fairly, parents, a lot of times, they will work with you. And they will be there by your side to make sure that their kids are doing right. And that's where I stand. Thank you.
Mrs. Amen, how would you help work to address the disparities in discipline of students of color and students with disabilities in our schools?
I think when it comes to disciplinary action for all of our students, consistency is going to be key. It's probably why we have a really thick rules and rights and responsibilities handbook for our students. But I think it's important for the students to know if this happens, this is what a consequence could be. And I think if we are consistent and we can also consistently look at how how a situation might have been responded to and an action that was taken, and ensure that the staff that was involved, followed the right procedures and options. That's also going to give staff and teachers knowledge and comfort that if there is a safety issue, it will be addressed, and that they can feel confident and that's, any students and all students, that we be consistent in applying consequences, so that our other students, teachers, and staff also know that their classes are going to be good, safe places to learn. When it comes to, some students may have disabilities that their behaviors can come into play, and I think there we also want to make sure that our staff, especially those most involved with particular students with certain disabilities, that they really understand the disability and work with the parents and the caregivers and the professionals to understand what might come up, so that they can respond and address a behavior or a situation that works with the student's disability, and also in a way that can work also with their other classmates and teachers and staff in the building. But I think education and knowing that you're meeting each child where they are
and doing the best for them. That's the most important.
Dr. Worthington, how would you help work to address the disparities in discipline of students of color and students with disabilities in our schools?
Well, my previous roles include 10 years as a juvenile correctional officer for the Department of Juvenile Justice here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, a former data specialist at Hampton University, a former adjunct professor at Hampton University, a special education teacher at an alternative school here in Newport News, downtown Newport News. I was a detention specialist at the detention center here in Newport News, as well as a mental health counselor working with juveniles. I'm also a former magistrate, so I totally understand what the data shows and how disparities can occur. The first thing I would do as an experienced professional working with juveniles is you have to standardize consequences. You gotta be fair, firm, and consistent. Race, you need to have a third party here determine, listen to what happened and everything, because sometimes when you are an educator or you're in the school system, in the school building, you can have cliques and there can be a bias, even a subconscious bias. But by having fair, firm, and consistent standards and make sure that the consequences are known and explained to all of the students, that would eliminate a lot of the disparities that can occur. Again, when I was working with Department of Juvenile Justice as a juvenile correctional officer, we had a third party address all of the grievances as well as the discipline notices, incident reports, and everything. So third party also being fair, firm, and consistent in treating all students equal without looking at their demographics. Thank you.
Mr. Bloom, how would you help work to address the disparities in discipline of students of color and students with disabilities in our schools?
First of all, I live and I was teaching in the North District, where the minority is those that are white. And I tried my best to treat everyone fairly and equally. And I chastised a white student that did something wrong and was playing games, and I chastised a black student. However, this idea of suspension causes more problems with teachers, as I had to play catch up with that child who's not in school for a week or two. I had one child whose mother took it upon herself to put the fear of God in her, and except for one punch, she did pretty good changing her life around because her mom cared, okay? And I actually told her that you did a good job. Unfortunately, 15, 20 minutes later, she punched a friend, and that's the way she reacted. But I believe that we need to teach everybody, treat everybody fairly, regardless of anything. You must be consistent or you can't control anything, because they'll jump all over you. I work at Busch Gardens part-time in Hollows Green, and I joked, I said, you know, they should have one where you have to be a teacher for the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, because there could not be anything more terrifying than doing that.
And Mrs. Harris, how would you help work to address the disparities in discipline of students of color and students with disabilities in our schools?
Yes, I have some of the same words that I jotted down, consistent consequences, being fair and equitable in terms of that. But what it brought me to is thinking about the suspension programs that we have out there, one I believe at South Morrison, and it brought me back when I ran a group home for adolescent boys ages 13 to 18, majority sex offenders. When they were suspended from school, they went to a program called Stay Up While You're Out, which was connected to the local churches. I am very interested in bringing in churches through the Coalition of Concerned Clergy in regards to bringing something that's modeled behind the Stay Up While You're Out. So there were actually retired folks that would come to this program. There were computer labs. They would be able to get their work, so stay up on their work. There would be behavioral intervention, there would be mediations, there would be a debrief on the actual incident that brought them into getting suspended in the first place. So I believe there needs to be some unpacking of those issues that would happen at that level. And then in regards to the students with disabilities, I would like to see our staff trained on how to deal with crisis, and students with intellectual developmental disabilities, you have to have a different approach. And I think that's something that our teams need to learn. Most of my substitution, most of my assignments have been at Kim Creek, where there is an autism program, and they are always in need of substitutes because most people don't want to work with the population, and that's just due to not being educated and not really knowing how to address the outbursts and the behavioral issues. So that's where I would start.
As we bring our school board forum to a close, we have covered a wide range of topics, but we want to give each candidate no more than a minute to give a closing statement and why they deserve your vote in the upcoming election. We will start with Mrs. Alger and then just work our way this way.
Yes, I wrote a couple of words for the closing, and the most important thing that I have to offer is that I'm here. I'm here to serve the community. That has been my mantra. That has been my belief. When I retired in 2019, and I saw what happened with the pandemic, I had been in education all my life. There was no way I could be home knowing that our children, our folks, our community needed support. And it's the reason why I came back into the role of school board member. And I will say that it's different simply because of the fact that when you're a school principal, you can make quick changes. And with school board, there's a lot more work that needs to be done. But that work is so important. And I'm humbled to be here, and I'm humbled to serve, and I ask for your support. And thank you so much for all that you have done to support our schools. And you can read up. I have cards in the back, and so please look me up and feel free to call. Thank you.
Yes, I voted the very first day of early voting, and Mr. Coleman and Mr. Anderson were out there campaigning, and they were telling them their names, and I had one person come out and saw me, and she goes, Mr. Bloom, North District, I did my homework, and she voted for me, and I don't, Mr. Beverly was right. This doesn't need to be a popularity contest. If there's a popularity contest, I will lose badly, but if you want to see changes, I can change things, and I also plan on, if I don't get the changes that need to be made in regard to the letter I sent to the school board, I do have an option. The way I was treated, I do have a plan on sending out a lawsuit. I have one in the federal, one in the state, against the federal and a state agency. So what's another one?
First of all, I want to thank Zion Baptist Church and the community organizations that have put together this forum. I always enjoy an opportunity to connect with community members and answer questions and share a bit about what's going on in the school board. I would love the opportunity to continue serving the City of Newport News, but also as one of the Central District representatives on the school board. I think there are a lot of good things happening in Newport News. There is still a lot of work to do, and I look forward to the opportunity to continue shepherding that. I would like to see us continue to laser focus on maintaining safety standards while we work to improve our academics and our accreditation, while we continue to build partnerships and opportunities for career development and maintaining strong community ties and relationships. So thank you, and I hope to have your support.
I think there's a big difference between being popular and being connected. And I would say that I feel like I'm connected to this community. I'm also a mother, so there's the investment. I have children in the Newport News public school system. I've been here for about 20 years, and I've been doing this community work, boots to the ground, well before I threw my hat in for any type of accolade or title. I also feel like I have a pattern, a regimen of success. There's a group home that I became a part of that was on the verge of actually closing, systemic violations. I went in and improved that. There was a nonprofit on the verge of being dismantled. We went in and revitalized that. There was another nonprofit that I work for right now, currently, that was stuck. We've doubled the census. I consider myself to be driven, committed, and extremely loyal, and already doing the work.
First of all, I'd like to thank our senior pastor, Mr. Tremaine Johnson. Yes, sir, Tremaine Johnson, for allowing us to use the venue. I'd like to thank God for allowing us to be here. We couldn't be here without him. I also would like to thank the NAACP, NAACP, or the double AC, the NAACP. Let's make sure we pronounce it correctly, for allowing us to be here, as well as the Sisters of AKA. I'm also a member of the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, the BRUS. So I really appreciate you all for allowing us to be here. I think there needs to be a change in how we do business, and I alluded to it earlier. I think it's very important that we not look at the elephant, miss the elephant in the room. We have 2 lawsuits that are going on right now in the Newport News. Both of those lawsuits are happening as we speak. We need to make sure that we do not play nice. We need to get in front of some of these things, put the right people in the places that can help make some changes. I've been a principal, assistant principal. I've been a guidance counselor. I've held several positions. I was at Lindsay Middle School, fully accredited. They sent me to Phoebus High School, fully accredited. I am a change agent. So if I'm so fortunate to be elected by you all, I will have an opening ear, and I will advocate for our families, the community, because I am a change agent, and I would love to have your vote. Thank you.
I'm not asking for your support because I have a PhD in education. I'm not asking for your support because I have 20 years of experience in criminal justice and education. I'm not asking for your support because I have raised 4 kids from start to finish in the Newport News public schools. I'm asking for your support because I'm a current educator. I am very much well aware. I have direct firsthand knowledge of the faces and the trials and the obstacles and the strategies that work and don't work. I am a current educator. I know what we are dealing with. I know what we have to do. I am very much well aware. I work shoulder to shoulder, elbow to elbow with educators and support staff that have given their all. I'm asking you to support me because you stand with me so I can stand up for you. Thank you.
All right, let's give a round of applause for our school board candidates. We appreciate your time. We appreciate you being present to share your stance on the issues that matter to our students and matter to our community. That concludes our school board forum. At this time, so we've got a lot of information to process. So we are going to take a short 15-minute intermission so that we can prepare for our forum with our city council. We have changed the time. We are going to keep it moving because we know this is a school night. People have to work tomorrow. We have to get to school tomorrow. So we're going to do a very brief 5-minute intermission. So that gives you an opportunity to stretch, get some water, get a snack, and then come back as we prepare to hear from our Newport News City Council candidates. So we'll be back in 5. Let me get this. That That was my goal. Thank you. Yes.
I didn't want to pull the AKA card, but
Okay. Okay. So with this question,
We went too far. But it
yeah,
was good. It was just so good.
right. So
And each time we've done it, we've done this.
okay,
Every time we've gone just like this. This every time. We're
okay.
supposed to be stopped.
Because I was
So
trying, right? I
I
was
know
trying
it.
to. I was
You
keeping
did
an
it
eye
great.
on the clock, and I thought, oh, we're
And
gonna go a
then
little
after
over.
a little while, it just got so good. And I was
Hmm.
hoping you just let it go. Well, it's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, we just gonna do 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Keep it moving.
All right.
Yes, thank you. Excellent. We're gonna gather in the room and then talk. I don't know. What do you think?
Who's coming up after me? Good evening, everyone. As you continue to do your thing with intermission and everything, I do have a few things to say. My name is Mike. I'm a community organizer with an organization known as the Virginia Black Leadership Organizing Collaborative, or VA Block for short. And we are all the way in the back corner over there. We have who's on the ballot this year for both the cities of Hampton and the city of Newport News. We also have these wonderful voter information sheets that you might not need, but even if you do need it, come and get it. But if you don't, you can pass it to family members. If you have younger people who are college students or things that need to cast an absentee ballot, keep in mind that the deadline to do that is October 25th, which is tomorrow. So make sure you do that. We have the link that you can go to request your absentee ballot. And we also have the early voting sites for both Hampton and Newport News. Newport News has 3 sites: City Hall on the 6th floor, also City Center on the 2nd floor, and then Denby Community Center in room 152. There will be Sunday voting this Sunday in Newport News. If you didn't know, that's when I'll actually be voting. You can go to any of those sites, and they will be open from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. We also have same-day voter registration. So if you're familiar, you know that the voter registration deadline has already passed. However, we do have same-day voter registration in Virginia. You just need an acceptable form of ID, which you can look up online as well. And you can just say, hey, I'm here to register to vote, and I would like to vote on as well. And you just give them your ID, you fill out the sheet, and you hand it in to the poll workers, and then they'll hand you a ballot. You will be voting on a provisional ballot because they have to verify your information. But if you do need to same-day register, or if you know anyone that needs to same-day register, make sure that you do that ahead of time, and you do that early before Election Day so that we don't run into any issues, and it increases the amount of time that you have before you have to have all your information in. So like I said, that's all I pretty much have for us this evening. So if you have any questions, whether it's for you, whether it's for an aging family member, whether it's for, like I said, a college student or someone that just lives outside of the area, whether they're in the military or otherwise, please come back and see me. I have everything from absentee ballot forms, the voter information sheets I mentioned, all of the things, all of the questions. Please go and ask, and we're right there to your right in the back corner. I'll pass it on to our moderator to continue things going. And thank you all so much for coming out.
All right, thank you, Mr. Daniel. So I do want to give a 1-minute warning. So we do want to get our city council candidates to the stage so that we can resume and be respectful of everyone's time tonight. All right, we will let our city council candidates get settled. All right, we had a great engaging forum with our school board candidates, and we know we will have much of the same with our city council candidates. To review how the forum will work, we will start with a 30-second opening statement that each candidate will have. You can introduce yourself and share why you feel that you should be elected to Newport News City Council. We will then proceed with our questions, some of which have been submitted by the audience. With each response, you will have 2 minutes. We do have a timekeeper who is up front who will let you know when you have 30 seconds remaining with your question. And then at the end, you will each have 1 minute for a closing statement. Are we ready? Yes. Yeah, okay, very good. Thumbs up. I like interaction. All right, we will start with our opening statements, and we will start immediately to my left, and then each of you can continue down the line.
Good evening. My name is Justin Kennedy, and I'm running for Newport News City Council. My main reason is because I believe that we need to pick up the pace of progress here in Newport News. I'm very concerned about some of our schools. Some of our schools in our area are 50 and 70 years old, and I think it's time to revitalize our schools. Schools are so important for our community, not only for our children, but also to attract people to our city. I'm also very concerned about safety in our city, and I believe that it's very important. With only 30 seconds, I'd like to continue talking a little bit more later on.
You'll have time throughout the forum to share more.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Rob Coleman. I'm running for Newport News City Council in the Central District. I believe my experience as a lifelong resident of Newport News, a product of Newport News Public Schools, also my 25 years with the Newport News Sheriff's Office, where I came up through the ranks from Deputy Sheriff to my final rank as Major, and I retired just 3 years ago to become the COO of the Boys and Girls Club of the Virginia Peninsula. I'm also a former council member and vice mayor, and I believe that my experience as a law enforcement officer in youth development and in city government makes me the most qualified. Thank you.
First, I bid everyone a good evening. Thank you, Zion Baptist and NAACP for inviting me, and all honors go to the candidates, which I definitely give honors to. My name is Clifton J. Atkins, 44-year resident of Newport News Southeast community. I take pride in living downtown in the Southeast community. I have been shipyard, Newport News shipbuilding, apprentice school graduate 1987, and I feel like that I'm in the area now as a carpenter, HVAC, electrician, contractor, building houses and revitalizing through renovations. We need to hold on to what we have and salvage what we can. I'm the best candidate for the Southeast community. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Scott Cox. I'm running for City Council Central District. I feel that I would be a good candidate because I'm coming from a fresh set of eyes, born and raised in Lynchburg, Virginia. So I'm a fresh voice, fresh set of eyes versus some of the other candidates that are from Newport News. We have a family of 4. Oldest just went to VCU for pharmaceutical. My wife, Chiffon, she's sitting back there. And we want to see changes as far as safety. Number one, what's happening with our children is it needs to be changed. So that's why I'm running. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody, and thanks again to the NAACP, Pastor Johnson, the Coalition of Concerned Clergy, for allowing us to be here on tonight. My name is Marcellus Harris. I am a proud product of Newport News, the public school system, and just the people and places of this great city that I call home. I'm so honored, privileged to be able to represent the people here in Newport News because it means that much to me. I have my wife with me on tonight, who was also a candidate for school board, who was here earlier sharing her information with the city, with the people here on tonight, and I'm just proud to be able to represent and hope I can share more about myself on tonight. Thank you.
Good evening. I'd like to thank all who have put on this forum and inviting us here. My name is Steve Ferguson. I'm running for City Council in the Central District. I have both public and private sector experience. I believe as a business leader in our community, I bring a fresh set of eyes to City Council to increase safety in our communities and our schools. We need to cut taxes. We need business innovation and change the way the city does business with business to encourage growth.
Good evening. I am Tina Vick, and I am running for re-election for the South District seat on City Council. I want to thank the NAACP and the women of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated for this opportunity. But I'm standing here today because my mission is to run for re-election to continue the great work that you have allowed me to do in this city by coming out to support me since 2008. It gives me so much honor to be able to look at the Lord Jefferson Avenue corridor that was created since I've been in office, where we have been able to spend millions of dollars. I've been able to bring new housing to the area, and I want to continue my work for the citizens. Thank you.
All right, let's jump right into our questions. Our first question, what are your top 3 priorities for the City of Newport News as a candidate? We will start with Mr. Cox.
Priority number 1, as I said before, is safety. I would like to see cameras at every bus stop, panoramic surveillance, so that we could see any type of suspicious activity. I would like to see law enforcement at metal detectors, every metal detectors at every school. There are some facilities, I know the Apprentice School doesn't have a metal detector, so there are some facilities that could be made safer and have active law enforcement man these metal detectors. Priority number 2 is education. We just went through all the ideas from the school board, and education is definitely something that needs to be addressed more. And number 3 is addressing lower income housing, building a shelter, addressing, not just building a shelter for the most needy, but also having a facility that addresses mental health issues. Not just put people in housing for a week and then send them back out in the streets without another solution. Actually help them get from A to Z to where they can get established and be stable.
Thank you. Mrs. Vick, what are your top 3 priorities for the City of Newport News?
Well, I'm going to continue my priorities. Since I ran in 2008, I ran on being able to increase economic development in our city, because people want to talk about programming and being able to build new things, but everything takes money. And so when we have more economic development that helps us generate revenue for our city, for our general fund budget, it allows us to be able to spend and afford things that we need. Programs don't just come free. Secondly, I also want to continue my relationship with the schools. Dr. Bess and Maritza Alger, we have a good relationship where we communicate constantly, and as well be able to create new and innovative ideas for our youth. As just like this year, we were able to sponsor the Youth Career Program, where we graduated over 100 kids to be able to not just have them out on the streets, but connected to jobs and jobs training and earning money, so that they will already know in their mind how it is to become prepared to become an adult. Because we have too many people still roaming around on the streets during the day, seeming like they don't know what they're supposed to do, and they're teens. We need to already work with them to have them prepared to understand about working and getting a paycheck, and to be able to move on with housing, to be able to increase our housing stock.
Mr. Atkins, your top 3 priorities.
Yes. First of all, aggressively trying to propose, if elected, and pursue the answer to the ongoing problems that we have had in this Southeast community for a number of years. And it has been my 3 platforms: economic growth of all of Newport News, but specifically economic regrowth for downtown Southeast Newport News communities. It's relics. We see it. We know that we had businesses at one time. Those businesses have evaporated, and now we're looking at a multi-diversical culture coming in, so that meaning of minority might not include solely us. We have to look forward to being an aggressive attempt to reestablish what was Chestnut Corridor, businesses up and down, Jefferson Avenue, businesses up and down. We need to be self-sufficient as a people. My second issue, lower the retention and constant crime and violence in our neighborhoods. We can do that by our coalitions of faith-based groups working together, law enforcement and able-bodied citizens, men and women being able to come together to be mentors to the young men. I'm doing my part teaching the young men. I'd like to see vocational trades come back into the schools. If not, we can take these buildings and annex them and try to draw businesses like Newport News Shipbuilding into our area. So look at, pull from our stock. You don't have to go out of state. Pull from the stock that's right here, a couple of blocks going over the bridge, and they'll be there. Have an annex or low clearances that we can work also. My third is affordable housing. I am a contractor. I've been a contractor 25 years working on houses. We'll get into that more, but we need to 30% of renters compared to owners. Billions of dollars of real estate owned down here by minority African Americans. We need to hold on to what we have. Thank you.
Mr. Kennedy, your top 3 priorities.
My first priority is our schools. As I was saying before, some of our schools are 50 and 70 years old. I don't believe that those are the best environments for our children to grow and learn. I also don't believe that those are the best environments to bring people to our city. If we want to attract people to our city, we need to have great schools and be able to pay our teachers and be able to educate our kids, which also goes into how we treat workforce development and all the education. I see Newport News as being a place where it's known for education and known for innovation. So I believe that our schools are our number 1 priority and number 1 priority when it comes to spending. Secondly, I'm very conscious about safety in our city. I have 2 boys that grew up here. My son is filming me now. I'm very conscious. I want my son to grow up in a safe environment. So I do believe that it's important to support the police officers and our police department and the police foundation. I also believe it's important to support those organizations that help keep children off the street. So yes, all these things actually cost money too. I happen to be presently a adjunct professor at Christopher Newport University, where I teach business law for the arts. And in that capacity, I've already been able to talk to some of my professors there about doing a study and a strategic plan to end gun violence in our particular area. Yes, I believe in studies. Yes, I believe in plans. None of them necessarily means that that will be the perfect study or the perfect plan, but I do believe that we need to figure some of these things out, study them, and then find a plan and try to meet our objectives within that plan. Thirdly, I love the development of this city. I love the great work that Councilwoman Tina Vick has been doing to revitalize downtown. I love it when I drove down here today to see how the landscape of Newport News has been changing. But I'm also very concerned about my 74-year-old mother, who I live down the street from, who is no longer going to be working and is in a place where she's worried about taxes, obviously, and she has a fixed income. A lot of people have fixed income. So those are my 3 top priorities that I would like to tackle when I get into office.
Thank you. Mr. Ferguson, what are your top 3 priorities?
So when elected, I think the 3 top priorities in the administration needs to be lowering the tax burden on every citizen in Newport News. Although our property tax have not gone up, our assessments over the past 3 years have gone up almost 40% in some cases. We have the highest property tax rate on the peninsula. We have the 3rd highest property tax in Hampton Roads. We have the highest meal tax in the country. It's too much tax burden on our citizens. It's driving citizens away. We've lost population. In the last 2 years, we've lost 18.6% of the business licenses in Newport News. Safe communities, second priority, safe communities and safe schools. Our kids and our staff cannot teach and learn in where they don't feel comfortable. I was at a barbecue meet and greet, and I met a 12-year-old girl that is scared to go to school. Literally scared to go to school, and she will not ride the school bus. Her mother has to take her every day because she's scared to go. That is not an environment that kids will learn in, and we're not preparing her properly for her life to come. And then lastly, we have to change the way business is done with, Newport News does business with business. To say the least, it's an arduous process. We need online permitting. We need economic development. We need to develop our airport. We have gems in the city that we need to enhance them, but we have to change the way our city deals with business. We've lost almost 20% of our business licenses in 2 years, and we're driving our way with high taxes, high burden, and that's what my 3 priorities are.
Mr. Coleman, your top 3 priorities.
Thank you very much, and it's a great question. I guess my number 1 priority would be is for everyone in the city of Newport News to have the same opportunities and experience that I've had through my entire life here in our great city. Of course, public safety is going to be on top of everyone's list here, because if you don't feel safe, you really don't have anything at all. And I believe that my experience as a law enforcement officer with the Newport News Sheriff's Office pretty much my entire adult life has given me a unique perspective and qualification to talk about that, and talking about how we cannot arrest our way out of the problems that we have in our community. We need to bring about our prevention and intervention programs. We also need to enforce the laws that we currently have on our books, but also we need to help people re-enter into society after they've gotten into trouble. And I've done all of those things during my career. One of the greatest prevention programs that we have is our public schools. If we educate our kids properly and give them the tools they need to be successful, we're going to be successful. But we need to make sure that our teachers feel valued, making sure that they're compensated properly, their class sizes are smaller as well, and also that they feel safe, that our kids feel safe, not only physically but emotionally in our schools. And then, of course, you're going to hear about economic development, but overall quality of life. I want to improve the quality of life for all of our citizens. So we're talking about making sure that people have opportunities, and also our seniors, our people who are on fixed incomes, they need to have an opportunity to live out their lives in respect and not have to worry about, am I going to pay my real estate taxes, or I'm going to get my groceries and my prescription medication. And I have a plan to expand the tax exemption program for seniors that I hope that my colleagues on council will hopefully look at and implement moving forward. So thank you so much. I appreciate that opportunity.
And Mr. Harris, your top 3 priorities.
All right, and yes, when I was introduced myself in that fast 30 seconds, I didn't get to say that I was seeking re-election for the North District as the representative of the North District. But you've pretty much heard a lot of what is a common theme. Public safety is something that we are going to continue to be a top priority for all of us. But just let me expand on some of the things that have taken place, because the reason why I got into this arena of serving on the city council is because as an educator for over 23 years, I had an opportunity to have, unfortunately, some of my students that passed away, whether they was on the streets due to gun violence or other unfortunate incidences that has pushed me and sparked me to be where I am today. But now we have programs in place for our youth, such as this past summer we had the Friday Night Nets, which was an opportunity to keep our young people off the streets on Fridays in the evening time, afternoon time, in which we saw a significant impact on our gun violence incidences in our community. In addition to that, our CARES program. Now, when you have people in the community that are experiencing a moment in which the police are called, if it's a mental health issue, the CARES team will go out before a law enforcement officer to see if they can mitigate that situation prior to it leading to an officer having to be involved. We talked about some of the youth resource programs that have been implemented over the summertime to provide career development opportunities to allow them to have jobs. So we're excited about that. And when we talk about public safety, we also got to talk about our Four Oaks program that keeps our homeless population off the streets. So there's a lot of great things that have taken place. And might I mention that since I've been on council, we were instrumental in hiring the best community police chief here in the state of Virginia with Police Chief Drew. So I see the yellow sign came on. Public schools is also something that I am very adamant about, because as Mr. Kennedy has shared, we have to do something about our public school building stock, and I'll share more about that later.
Right. We'll let you finish the sentence. So there. Well, no. You finish the sentence, so you're good. You're good. You're good. You can pick it up with the next question. So we hear a recurring theme from our candidates. We heard it during our school board forum, and that is that safety is on the top of people's minds, and that is a top priority. It also is a top priority for those in our audience. We do have audience-submitted questions, and this one is regarding safety and security in our schools as well as in our communities. The question is, what plans or strategies do you have to address the growing gun violence and access to firearms in our city? And Mr. Ferguson, we'll start with you.
Well, gun violence, we have to address in a holistic approach. We have to face it and attack it from every angle. We need to have parents involved with the kids. We need to have the police department be in active community policing. We need to have faith-based organizations active in their community. We need to have people in community. We need to have that quality of life where you feel like you can walk down the street, talk to your neighbor, and have that sense of community. When we have that sense of community, violence of all kinds, not just gun violence, decreases. When people are connected with people in their community. So we need to attack it holistically, from mental health, from policing, to faith-based organizations, to parents being involved. So if you can think of an angle, we need to attack it from that angle.
Mr. Harris, what are your plans or strategies when it comes to addressing violence and access to firearms in Newport News?
Well, yes, because that's a follow-up to what I was sharing before. Some of the things that we do need to continue on is to continue to provide those funding for those organizations that are out there on boots to the ground. We were, year before last, we allocated $1.2, $1.3 million to nonprofit organizations that are out there that are in the communities for where a lot of the unfortunate incidents may occur. But we got to be mindful also of the fact that we had a decrease in gun violence over this past year, or over 50% decrease, I want to say, due to some of the programs that have been implemented. But to continue moving forward, just a couple months ago, our mayor, in collaboration with the mayor of Hampton, have teamed up to put out a call of action to the men in our community. To get out there for more mentorships, more coaching opportunities, more resources that are allocated to programs that are providing resources to the demographic that is highly proportionate that we see that are involved in these crimes of gun violence. So that's one of the things that we want to continue to push forward when it comes to providing these resources. One of the things I also would like to see when we talk about the schools, we got to modernize our schools. Yes, we're putting in these metal detectors at all of our schools, which was due to the incident that occurred a couple years ago. But also, we have to get to a place where some of our buildings are just hard to try to put coverage everywhere because of the way they were built 50, 70 years ago. And I think a big thing that we're going to have to look forward to is modernizing our schools and providing the 21st century building, because education today is a lot different than when it was back when I was coming out of Ferguson High School.
Mr. Coleman, what are your plans and strategies when it comes to addressing violence?
Thank you very much. I believe we're definitely on the right path. Currently, with the current council and their initiatives, and quite honestly, these are some of the initiatives that Tina and I started back in 2012 when we had our peer program, and we're continuing with those programs. And as Marcella said, we've seen a significant drop in violent crime since last year at this time. But moving forward, I will tell you, like I said, as a former public safety professional, I mean, there's all kinds of things that we can do from a legal standpoint. Like enforcing our laws, making sure that we have enough police officers on the streets to respond to calls for service, making sure we have a presence so people think twice about committing heinous acts of violence. But I think the most important thing that we can do is to instill a pride into our children, and also hope. I think right now, so many of our young people don't feel like they have anything to lose. And I think giving them a proper opportunity to get an education, also through mentoring and partnerships with nonprofits and the faith-based community, and making sure that we are that village that is supporting young people and making sure that they're making good decisions. And when they don't, there's someone there to catch them. Because I think that's another thing that we fail to appreciate, is that, not everyone has the same resources. And, what we can't take credit for the situations that we're born into, but what we can do is sit here and support each other and take care of each other and let us all be one village. Thank you.
Mr. Atkins, what are your plans and strategies?
Yes, we have found out over the last 25 years, myself and a coalition of young men, elder, senior men, have learned that we have to be engaged with the youth, the youthful offender, the young adults, even those that have quit school, to re-engage them back into a community that shows respect for them, and not to look at them as criminals or the adage of lock them up and throw away the key. But we have to be able to interact with them. And in my case, as a contractor, I've hired a lot of young men in the summer months when they're out of school. Those that are 18 and over, they've been on the construction site making a wage. That's an alternative, first of all, to the streets. And you would be surprised how much they learn and how much they appreciate making an honest dollar. And on the flip side, we are still working in the communities, but we're going into the back streets, the alleyways, and those areas that an individual has to be kind of fearless in order to go into. But I can speak their language. I've been there. I've been there and seen that side of a life, juvenile delinquency. But now, 25 plus years of knowledge on the streets, plus the 25 years of constantly studying and going to school, we have something that we can offer them as an alternative. And also, like Mr. Coleman said, a reentry program. We got to make contact with the inmates over in the city jail, in the Virginia penal system. For when they do come home, they will have a program already set out for them that we're going to reduce crime to 0. One violent act is one too many downtown. And we're going to do all all able-bodied men, we're going to come into a coalition that we're going to end violence downtown. Thank you.
Mrs. Vick, what are your plans or strategies when it comes to addressing violence in our communities?
Well, one of the things I have been working on with my colleague, Darlene Walker, who she runs the National Black Child Network, because we've got to look at bigger than just the schools and the city. It's no way we should be able to allow, when the young guy got shot on 16th Street, and the Mayor Philip Jones, our mayor, and Chief Drew and I went out there at 6 o'clock in the morning the next day because we wanted to make sure our kids felt safe. It's still bothering me right now that no parents were out there. None. And that should bother everybody in this room, that not a single parent was out there the next day after that horrific shooting. And that to me signals that we have got to beef up the requirements, particularly if we have people who, in Newport News, we have our share of subsidized housing. Subsidized housing means that the government is paying for part of the family's rent. I believe that is our way to be able to say, look, we have to put some requirements in the leases. We should not keep allowing people, families, to sit in low-income housing without requiring in the lease that throughout the year they're required to take some type of educational classes, budgeting classes, social skills, parenting, because what we have to do in the city, we've got to build better families, because these parents have got to be tougher on these children and more concerned about them from that incident. And of course, the summer jobs, we're doing that, but we still got to have a community conversation that's got to be a strategy, a tough strategy for our parents.
Mr. Cox, what are your plans or strategies when it comes to addressing violence?
Thank you. This is a sensitive subject for me as well. I like everything that all the other candidates said. One of our boys was actually friends with the child that was his life was taken on 16th Street, and I had to go home and explain to him what happened. There is no one way that we can fix this. It's going to take an army. It's going to take a village. Newport News is ranked number 10 in the most dangerous cities in Virginia. How did we get there? How did we get out of being in the top 10? How do we keep us from getting into the top 2 with Norfolk and Portsmouth? We have to come together as a community. We have to make it harder for people to get guns. It makes no sense. Guns don't have a mind of their own. It's a people problem, not a gun problem. The guns need to be in safes, and people need to be more educated about gun violence. Like I said, it's going to take a village, it's going to take an army, but we need to all come together. Neighborhood watches, more meetings with the community as a whole. And most importantly, the parents have to have relationships with their children. If the kids is running the streets throughout the day and the parents don't know what's going on, that's what happens. The parents have to take responsibility to know, this is what my kid's doing from the hours of 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. So it has to start there. It has to start in the home first. Thank you.
Mr. Kennedy, what are your plans or strategies when it comes to addressing violence?
Okay, thank you. So I spoke about this a bit before. Gun violence and safety of our city is really important to me. And my colleagues said some very great things, all of them, so I don't want to reiterate everything that everyone said. I will say just again that I do believe in studies and plans, even though just like I believe in business plans and that kind of thing. So if we can dig into it a bit, I believe that we may be able to come up with a strategic plan that can really make a dent into our violent situation here. But the other point that I really wanted to make is just, and it was made before, but I just want to reiterate in terms of this is a community issue that's going to take all of our hands to the plow. This is not something that one strategic plan or one organization or one person can fix. When the mayor gave us his call to action, I took it to heart. We all have to get involved more. All of us, not just black men, but black men in particular, we all have to get involved as much as we can in order to do something about this in our community. So everyone needs to step up to a higher level of leadership, everyone, if we're going to do something about this. Thank you.
Affordable housing is an issue in our area, and families are spending significant amount of their income to be able to have a place to live. Also, families looking to buy a home are finding that that dream is unattainable. So, starting with Mr. Cox, how would you plan to help address the housing crisis we're facing in the Hampton Roads region, specifically in Newport News?
One way that we can address that is making it a little bit more affordable to live in Newport News. Some of the developments that we have, they're beautiful, beautiful developments, especially in our central district. But as far as the cost of rent, the cost of housing in not just the central, just in Newport News as a whole, is unrealistic for a lot of people's income. So we need to have more help financially reducing some of those costs that we have. You could have an apartment that's a shoebox and it costs $2,000 if it's in city center. A lot of people can't afford that. So we need to develop more housing that is affordable for someone that's on a fixed income. Thank you.
Mrs. Vick, how are you, or how would you address the housing crisis?
Of course, some of you do know I am a real estate broker, so I do know about the housing market as it relates to families needing to buy homes. Unfortunately, as it comes to purchasing, it's not a lot that we can do about the prices of the homes because City Council does not regulate how much home sells, how much properties sell for. That's regulated by the market of people who want to buy and pay for these homes. So there are a lot of people, just like in any city, that can afford higher priced homes. But what I do love about our city, even if you don't have that option, to buy, our city has an adequate, more than adequate amount of subsidized housing. I want to say the numbers, at least for Section 8 vouchers. Those are vouchers that are given to families so they can go and find apartments, and we do have some that can buy the home with the voucher in that program under the Department of Housing and Urban Development. So with that, we are able to allow our families to live in nice places, but it's based on their incomes, which gives them a chance to have a nice housing opportunity for a lower price. And I think with the vouchers over $3,000, we have our public housing under our Newport News Redevelopment and Housing programs. And with that program, we do have affordability. You know, right down the street, we have the senior housing, where one of my favorite supporters, Ms. Dorothy Murray, is living. She's sitting in the back, and her sister. But we do have a lot of adequate housing in our city. Just by being on the council, I've helped to bring Brennan Point on Warwick Boulevard that has their own Section 8 in that apartment. Heritage Forest is one of the apartments I work with the developers to bring that here. So with our $30 million grant with our HUD to be able to bring this new housing here. So I do believe, yeah, the housing is a crisis, but we are already in the middle of, we've already brought solutions here in Newport News.
Mr. Kennedy, how would you work to address the housing crisis, specifically in Newport News?
That's a great question. So I believe that it would be a great idea to, like, recently Kamala Harris actually came out with a plan that I didn't think was, that bad. You have $20,000 for first-time home buyers. If there were ways to have incentives where we could help people get access to capital, to start that American dream, I think that would be great. Also, being able to support our small businesses or our businesses that also need capital. At the end of the day, you can't buy a house if you don't have any money. So if we can support our citizens in those types of ways, then I believe that will also help us to bring people from even homelessness. I've watched people that have organizations like Pastor Willard Maxwell, and he's brought people from actually being homeless to buying homes. But it does take nurturing and it does take funds. And I believe that we can do that if we work together.
Mr. Atkins, how would you work to address the housing crisis?
Yes, even as a contractor, I am a landlord also with single dwelling houses. But like again, I say, it's a 70-30% ratio. And the 70 is 70% of those in the Southeast community residents, they are renting. And as we know, the rent prices are going up. There's no ceiling. I believe that the city should impose a rent cap and enforce it vigorously. And if it's done so, all of these private owners will come down on their rents to make it affordable for single family families to obtain houses. And I reiterate what Mr. Kennedy just said. Basically, let's hope that the $25,000 first-time homeowners grant money comes. But on the flip side of that, we still have the CDB block grants, and we still have the urban renewal projects, and we still have funding coming in to Newport News Redevelopment and Housing. Just last week, the port was open for those that were interested in Section 8 submitting Section 8 applications, but no one heard about it. And I was trying to go through the neighborhood, but it was the last day. It wasn't open but for a short period of time. But we have to get back to being able to understand, and just like education financially, letting the tenants, the long-term tenants, they have paid for houses in 15 years of renting. They could own that same house. And I work for 3 realty companies that own about 1,000 houses down here. And I tell them, just like I'm telling you all, I want to see my people own their own houses. And for the elders and the seniors to have a revitalization program that's going to help them save theirs. Thank you.
Mr. Coleman, how would you work to address the housing crisis?
So the rental rate in the entire city of Newport News currently is about 50%. That is dangerously high for a city whose major economy is not tourism or university or college town. So we definitely need to address that. I think all of our colleagues up here have said that, you know, rents are out of the roof, home prices are increasingly going up, and what can we do about that? Well, there's a couple things we can do. I think redevelopment is a big thing here in the city of Newport News. We have a lot of aging neighborhoods. We have a lot of seniors, like I said before, who are on fixed incomes that need assistance. So expanding the tax exemption for seniors program that we currently have and making it available to more people, and then building upon that with a organization like Rebuilding Together, where we just had a launch party a couple weeks ago, and this is a nonprofit that is out there that helps obtain materials for renovations to homes to people who are on fixed incomes, and then we bring the community in and they do the repairs. They put the windows in, they put a new roof on, they put new siding on, because one of the things that's going to help with, especially with our established residents, is making sure that they're living in a safe and also attractive place. But this is not just a Newport News issue, and I've been talking about this entire time. This is a Hampton Roads issue. This is a peninsula issue. And one of the first things that I want to do is bring our peninsula partners on, because no one else is really talking about this but Newport News. But I would love to bring our peninsula partners together to see how we could collaborate to provide more opportunities for people to have affordable housing and shelter.
Mr. Ferguson, how would you work to address the housing crisis?
So, how to address the housing crisis? First, like I said before, we have to lower the tax burden on every citizen in Newport News. We pay the highest property tax on the peninsula. If you're looking at buying a house and you can go to a neighboring county 5 minutes away and pay 2/3 of the taxes, the tax rate, you're probably going to buy there. So, second thing, we need to change the way the city does business with business. I'll tell you a quick story. So we had a builder that wanted to renovate a house that had a fire in it on Rich Neck Road. The fire happened early April. They applied for permits mid-April. They didn't get approved for permits until August 5th. That's an arduous process to walk through. We need to speed that process up. We need to have an online portal for permitting. We need to revamp our zoning, the compliance. Something that the city did this week, which was awesome, about the parking requirements. I think that was an awesome thing that we did, getting rid of the parking requirements for builders. And then we have to encourage economic development. We have to bring businesses back to the city. Businesses bring people, brings vitality, brings the community, and we have a place for that. We have great parks. We have great places to spend time in Newport News. We have a wonderful city. We just have to reduce the tax burden and change the way the city does business with business.
And Mr. Harris, how would you work to address the housing crisis?
Yes, there's been a lot of work, as has been stated. Not I want to echo whatever already has been shared, but we recently had a housing study that was completed about a month ago that shared with us some valuable information in regards to where we are in our housing stock. And it was shared with us in year 2050, I believe, 2050, 2055, we have to build at least 700 homes a year. That's a charge to us, and making sure that we're doing all that we can to bring in, whether it's just developers or seeking tax credits for people that are going to be able to help us with this task. Now, one of the things that was able to happen for the past few years, we took a big bite with the C&I grant that we were able to receive, which helped revitalize the residents that you've seen coming down here to Zion Baptist on tonight. But also, in addition to that, we have to diversify some of our housing stock as well. When we talk about bringing in more economic development, one of the things here in Newport News, a lot of supervisors or CEOs, they don't want to live in Newport News because they don't have the housing stock available for them. So there are some things that we're going to have to look at doing to diversify our housing stock here in the city of Newport News, because as you have already heard, we are one of the highest subsidized housing in the region. So we have a lot of affordable housing, we have subsidized housing, but when it comes to more middle and higher income homes, we are lacking significantly. So making sure that we're doing all we can, and even looking at some of the historic zones that we have in our city, because there are historic tax credits that we could utilize to help modernize some of those residents that we have here in the city, to help build up our housing stock and make it more diversified.
We have encouraged the members of our audience to submit questions, and this is a question submitted from the audience. It is, what is your stance on city workers being able to collectively bargain with city council? Mr. Atkins, we'll start with you.
I truly believe in bargaining. I believe in unions. I believe that a happy employee will yield a lot more productivity. As far as collective bargaining with the educators here in the city, maintenance workers, all city staff, everybody deserves a raise. Why? Because cost of living is outpacing what we make per hour or salary. So I'm all for collective bargaining on every case. I'm also an HRT operator, and seeing how the company is expanding, we are union through the amalgamated union nationwide, but we have to be able to localize it and be able to come together, because every situation may not be good for this union representative somewhere else as far as down here close to home. So collective bargaining is a very big thing. Everyone has ideas, our union representatives, so it is a wise thing that the employer should listen. And not only that, to add in to whatever that the collective bargaining propositions or proposals is coming from the union representatives, and to be able to complement that with not even the minimum, but the maximum amount of pay raises, health insurance, and looking into establishing 401k programs, incentives of later on early retirement and pensions, and all that can be supplemented by the state and the federal government programs, and employees will enjoy working for a company, Newport News Shipbuilding and different areas where people can retire. I remember when I was working back in the shipyard, the employees couldn't retire until they got 75 years old, and then some of them had to go out and get other jobs in order to live on a fixed income. Thank you.
Mr. Coleman, what is your stance on city workers being able to collectively bargain?
I believe that it's so important that all of our stakeholders, including our city employees and also our schools division employees, that they have a seat at the table. This is just not about salaries, right? This is not just about benefits. This is about being seen and heard and feeling appreciated. And as a former city employee, and I will tell you this, there have been times where I believe our perspectives were not really appreciated or even wanted to be heard. So I am for collective bargaining. I've given my plan to the Newport News Fraternal Order Police, the Newport News Police Benevolent Association, also the International Association for Firefighters, and the Newport News Educators Association, and that's why they have all endorsed our campaign, because they understand that I know the importance of having them at the table when we're making these big decisions. Now I want to pivot real quick, because I do want to talk about something that was brought up earlier about the cost of living here in the city of Newport News when it comes to taxes. I will tell you, according to our census, we have the lowest cost of living on the peninsula. So if you're going to talk about what our real estate taxes are and what the rate is, you also have to talk about the assessments on the property, because when you live in a community where property assessments are 40% higher than they are here in the city of Newport News, and they're collecting the same amount of money, but providing half of the services that this great community provides. We need to be open and transparent about that. Thank you.
Mr. Ferguson, what is your stance on city workers being able to collectively bargain?
I believe in having the city of Newport News be the best place to work, bringing all people to the table. I don't believe in collective bargaining agreements, but I believe that city officials, the team as the city of Newport News comes together and works forward to the best plan.
Mr. Kennedy, what is your stance on collective bargaining?
I think collective bargaining is important, and I'll tell you why. I have a law degree, and I practiced law for many years, and I think collective bargaining is important because, number one, it starts the communication process. Basically you have a group of employees that may be, upset with management or maybe upset with the people that own the company. Well, how do they start to communicate that? So having an organized way to communicate, having an organized way to be able to negotiate what you want out of the situation, I think makes the process even more seamless. So I wish that we all agreed on this, but I'm for collective bargaining.
Mr. Harris, what is your stance on city workers being able to collectively bargain?
Well, I'll make my answer brief. On Tuesday, we just ratified a collective bargaining board, and I voted yes for that.
Short and sweet. Mr. Cox, what is your stance on city workers being able to collectively bargain?
Well, I'm happy that to hear Councilman Harris say that they approved that. I think it's a no-brainer, honestly. We are a city in the state in the South, and people need to be able to defend themselves, especially in the workplace. I think collective bargaining, not just for city employees, but as Mr. Coleman said, for school board and people at the shipyard, unions, people need to feel protected, not that they're just going to work, that they actually have a stable income and are safe to buy a house where they're not going to be foreclosed, a year or two later. Safe from diversity, safe from segregation. As I said, we are in the South, and I'm sure someone in this room has experienced or knows someone experienced some type of, discriminatory situation in the workplace. So collective bargaining would also lessen the chances of that happening. Thank you.
And Mrs. Vick, what is your stance on city workers being able to collectively bargain?
Well, I definitely agree that they should have a chance to collectively bargain. We did, as a council, the mayor and council, we did start a task force for that to include so many of our city workers, and I think that's an important step because we all know that the issue of collective bargaining and unions really came out of the unfairness and inequality and discriminatory practices that were allowed on jobs. And we still have places and different departments that we do want to look at to make sure people are getting employed fairly, treated fairly, but not only that, one of the biggest things that so many cities suffer from when you have this sort of like a clique that the same people are getting promoted, the same people are getting job opportunities or raises, and it should be afforded to all in all fairness. So I am for the union and the collective bargaining because I think everybody needs to have a seat at the table. But I do have to say, what I do love about our city, Newport News, we have really worked to work with our employees, look at our systems to make sure there's fairness, and when we do get any type of complaints through our employment office, human resources office, we take that seriously.
We have had an opportunity to hear from our candidates on a wide range of issues, and we have many other topics that we could cover. However, time will not permit that. So we'd like to move to our closing statements. I ask that each candidate limit their statement to 60 seconds or less. I know, it's going to be quick. This is lightning round. And we are going to start right. Our timekeeper will make sure that you stick to that. We will start with Mrs. Vick, and then we will just work our way this way.
Well, I want to make sure I say thanks to the clergy for hosting this too. I know Pastor Johnson was over there when I missed the clergy. I said, so I don't want to be in his bad grace. I want to say hi to Congressman Scott. Congressman Scott is here with us tonight. But I just want to say thank you all for coming tonight, for having the opportunity to be able to share some of the things I've done in leadership. When I tell you, I am so proud of being able to serve on this council, particularly you can just open your eyes and just see the evidence of my hard work and working with my council members and our mayors and everyone, because it does take a team to be able to move the city forward. I feel so blessed when I go up to, I didn't just do everything in the South District, but when I go up to the Central District and I get to see our tech center and how so many people love our tech center. They get a chance to spend money, of course, spend money in Newport News. And so those are the things that keep me excited, and that is why I want to continue to stay on the city council. So please, early voting and November the 5th, please vote the most qualified candidate, me, Tina Vick, for re-election.
Well, once again, thank you all for hosting the event. All that have came out, I want to thank you. Being part of the process is essential. To electing your leaders. Local elections mean way more in our daily lives than any national election will ever happen. It determines the taxes that we pay, the schools, the quality of the schools, and the roads that we drive on, and everything in between. So I believe with my experience in both public and private sector, having a different view, being a business leader, and bringing business ideas to City Hall, I believe I'm the best person for the job in the Central District to be able to help shepherd the city forward. And together we can move it all forward to improve the quality of life of every citizen in Newport News.
And once again, thank you to everyone who put on this. Thanks to you as well for being the moderator. And my wife looked at me funny because I thanked everybody but the AKAs, so thank you AKAs as well for putting this event on. Just to be real quick, I grew up, born and raised here, city of Newport News, and I had a role model that I looked towards each and every day, who was my father. My father was a servant in this community. He raised a lot of noise. Can't say the word in church that I wanted to say, but he raised a lot of noise because he was an advocate for people. He loved people, he loved this community, he loved this city. And I try each and every day to make him proud by following in his footsteps. It just so happened I was reading some of my father's stuff, and I came across a good friend of his, Mr. Rudy Langford, who served with the Coalition of Justice. And these were two men that I had an opportunity to see fighting for those that were underserved and those that felt unheard. And it's an honor for me for these past 8 years to serve in the city of Newport News for those that are underserved and those that are unheard. November 5th, please select Marcellus Harris. You won't see another name beside it because I'm running unopposed, but you still be doing me a great favor by circling that name.
Time. He was stretching out those final seconds.
Yes, you did. I also would like to thank the NAACP for having this event. I'd like to thank our moderator. I'd like to thank the AKAs. I myself am a proud member of Kappa Alpha Psi. You know we love you guys, so thank you. But I'm from Lynchburg, but I've been in Newport News for the past 20 years. I've seen a lot of good things change. I've seen where we can go in the future. I want to be a part of that. I want to work for you. That's why I'm here. That's why I want to do this. And I didn't get to mention it because we've been had short time. But I do pest control, and I see what's going on in the community. I've probably been in some of your homes treating for water bugs or rats or insects, ants, whatever. But when doing something like that, you see the community from all dynamics, from the South District, the Central District to the North, and you see the things that can be changed, and I want to be a part of that, and I want to bring it from, you know, a good old boys set of eyes from the Berg. So, thank you.
Yes. We have a beautiful city. We have a coastal city that's sitting on waterfront property. Almost 50 years for me, I embrace this city. I look at this residents as an asset. I work hard for my residents. I love the seniors, the elderly, the young children, and the middle aged, the single parents, anything that they want. I've been on the campaign trail up and down these streets. Sometimes I park my truck and get on my bike, but I've talked to people and they've said, Clifton, can you do some work for me on my house? All my paperwork goes back into my bag, and I said, I'll be right back. I go and get my ladders and get my tools, and over this last 6-7 months, I had a terrible fire at my house, lost everything, but I didn't let that stop me. I went out, people was constantly calling, Clifton, can you come and do this, do that for me? I said, yes, I will. So I am compassionate about my people down here. I love all of Newport News, the North and Central District, but Southeast community, I want to see a renaissance and a revitalization of our people. Thank you.
Once again, I just want to thank everyone for coming tonight. Also want to thank the NAACP, the Coalition of Concerned Clergy, the AKAs, and also Virginia Block for giving us this opportunity. At the Sheriff's Office, we used to have an old saying, when the position is posted, auditions are over, right? And what does that mean? That means, hey, between the time we post that position and when we decide to hire for it, that's not the time to prove that you're the right person for the job. And I hope that you can look at my experience and also my record of service as a public safety professional, as a youth development professional, as a community leader and a community advocate to see that not only do I have the knowledge, but I have the heart for this community and to do this job. And I would encourage each and every one of you to go to robcolemanforcouncil.com to see the rest of my resume and also my plans moving forward and how I'm going to try to work with my colleagues on council to make this, and no, not make it, but continue to make Newport News the greatest city on the peninsula and Hampton Roads. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zion Baptist, wonderful women of AKA, the NAACP, and our great moderator. It's a wonderful evening. I also like to thank my colleagues here. It's been awesome. This is our last public appearance, so I've learned a lot from each one of you, and I really sincerely wanted to thank you all. I think that I was energized. I've been energized by our great mayor and our city council. And I believe that I'd like to join them on the team to pick up the pace of progress here in Newport News, because I do believe that we need to take innovative approaches and keep up with technology. We have automation, we have artificial intelligence, we have so many things that are happening now. And if we don't pick up the pace, we will be left behind. I do believe that we have an awesome city, we have a great city, and that it is growing, it is expanding, and it is becoming awesome. We have an all-American city. And I believe that I would be the great person to be on the team of City Council to help them grow. And I hope that you would support Kennedy for City Council on November 5th or before. Thank you so much.
Let's give our candidates a round of applause. Thank you so much to each of our candidates for being present tonight so that voters have an opportunity to know your stance on the issues that matter to them. And also, give yourselves a round of applause for being present to make sure that you are informed when you're in the voting booth on November 5th or if you are voting early. At this time, I'd like to call forward Dr. Tamara Cobb, President of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated Lambda Omega Chapter, for some of our closing remarks.
Oh, we're going to have, just before she comes, I wanted to ask our congressman to please come up and say a few words.
Yes, if Congressman Scott could come forward. We appreciate you being in attendance tonight.
Well, Thank you so much. I want to thank Virginia Block, the NAACP, the concerned citizens, and the AKAs who are immensely proud during this election because one of their members will become the 47th President of the United States. Reverend Johnson and Zion, thank you for hosting us today. This is an important election. There are a lot of issues, and what we've heard are answers to questions on a federal level. We haven't gotten a lot of answers. We've gotten a lot of complaints and a lot of blaming. And in fact, I call part of the strategy complain and blame. We saw this in big time on the immigration issue. One side will complain about the issue, get people all worked up into a frenzy. And when a solution came up, Senator Langford's conservative Republican came up with a solution, they killed the bill and then went back to complaining and blaming. They complain about inflation. No solution. Democrats are putting money in their pockets. We want the child tax credit, more stimulus checks, enhanced SNAP benefits, so when you go to the grocery store, you got some more money to deal with inflation. All you hear are just complain and blame. You think that we were saying, we were making jokes, they're going to blame us for the weather. Those of you following the news know that Marjorie Taylor Greene, if you Google Marjorie Taylor Greene, Democrats control weather, a whole bunch of stuff will pop up because she actually blamed the Democrats for controlling the weather and sending the hurricane to Republican areas rather than Democratic areas. But we can do a lot with health care. We got more people covered with health insurance than we've ever had before, created more jobs than anybody else has. In 4 years, Biden and Harris have created more jobs in 4 years than any Republican president in the history of the United States, whether they served 4 or 8 years. Compared to the other guy, worst job performance in about a century. Put more money into education than any legislation in the history of the United States and the American Rescue Plan Act. I mean, so we've done a lot. We have actually solved the problems, not just complain and blame. And so I'm asking for your support. I am on the ballot. I do have opposition. I do. I do have opposition, so I'm asking for your vote for me, Tim Kaine, who's running for U.S. Senate, and Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, who are running for President and Vice President of the United States. And again, I want to thank our sponsors for putting this on. This is a great opportunity. When they went to November elections for local, there was a fear that people would forget about that and not pay any attention to it. But this forum shows that people running for local office can have their views heard and people have their issues considered. So thank you to all of the sponsors, and make sure you get out and vote. You can vote now, vote early. My recommendation is you vote early and in person, get it over with, because if a storm comes on election day and you hadn't voted yet, too late. And remember what Linda Bird Johnson, President's daughter, said when she was driving the car with her mother. They would miss the curve or going over a cliff. And her mother said, "Oh man, we should have voted absentee."
Good evening. I think our joint partners have been thanked enough. But again, I would like to echo Congressman Scott's words in terms of the nonpartisan effort to bring all of our school board candidates who showed up and showed out, our city council candidates who showed up and showed out. I want to commend them for doing so. It is rare that we have the opportunity to hear the diverse words, thoughts, plans of those who in the future and who previously have represented the city's needs, our citizens' needs, and my only wish is that you go out and you energize and you put forth what you've heard this evening, because they've taken a great deal of time to come, and it's important to hear the words of our candidates, and for all of them to have come, we want to thank you on behalf of the NAACP, the Coalition of Concerned Clergy, the members of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, and Virginia Block. And we hope that you have been energized by something you've heard this evening. Go out, tell your friends, tell your family, take 4 or more to the polls, and be blessed. We thank you and have a great evening.